أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Um, so today we did Surah Qamar and very beautiful surah. The reason I chose the surah to do this a little intermission before we jump into Surah, Ali Imran, is that this surah has a lot of very good um reminders for us. So actually this surah and Surah Qaf. Um, it's reported that the Prophet ﷺ used to actually recite these surahs in during like big gatherings. And the reason why I chose these two surahs is because they have a lot of good reminders about the Day of Judgment and kind of like just important things to remember. Um, and I just think, that's a very if that's, what the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in those big gatherings, then there's obviously like some takeaways we can take. So before I go into my favorite ayah, um, just want to talk a little bit about the surah itself. So if we look at the meaning of it, and I'll pull it up. But the first ayah is اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر, which means the hour has drawn near and the moon is split into two. وَإِن يَرَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُوا وَيَقُولُوا سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. Yet whenever they see a sign, they turn away, saying, "Same old magic." So this is referring to the time that there's narrations where there was like people in the tribe of Quraysh that basically told the Prophet, we want to see a sign. And the Prophet ﷺ took his finger and across the moon he went like this and the moon split. Obviously through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power and will. And it's referring to these two eyes referring to that, as the people would say then that the moon is split, but this is just magic, right? Whenever they were given signs, they would just say this is a magic. um Now one thing that I want to note is that the surah talks by saying iqtarabat as-sa'a, like the time is coming, the hour is drawing near, and this is referring to the Day of Judgment. So there's actually there's actually hadith and narrations that the Prophet ﷺ said back then that um that the hour was near, right? Like as in the Day of Judgment is coming, the Day of Judgment is coming. Although he does not, there's narrations that he does not know the exact time. Because there's a story about how Angel Jibril asked the Prophet ﷺ, when is the Day of Judgment? And he said, the one you are asking to answer knows as much as the one who asked about this. As in, like, they both don't know the exact time. But we do know the signs, right? Some of the signs. Um, and I've discussed this in previous videos, but some of the signs include disobedient children to their parents. So children telling their parents what to do, disobedient children. Um, the people, the Bedouins that will race to make the tallest buildings. And we literally see this, right? We see the people in the Middle East racing to build these extraordinary buildings. Um, and then signs where like nakedness and prostitution and things like that will be normal. And we see that in our present day society, right? All those things are accessible and extremely common in society. I think there's a couple of, there's some other signs, but kind of the point is that a lot of these signs that we're told to expect for the Day of Judgment are already happening, right? So it should just be like an eye opener. Um, and if the Quran is saying the hour is drawing near, then, and this is 1400 years ago, this was revealed. So just things to think about. Um, Another thing I want to talk about is that this surah actually, I mean, the symmetry of it is amazing. There's a couple of ayahs There's a couple of ayahs that are repeated throughout the surah. Sorry, I paused for a sec because my door opened, but I think one of the cats is entering. Um, this is my cat. He's joining us for this talk. But there's a couple of ayahs that are repeated throughout the throughout the surah in actually a symmetric order. So, for example, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِّرٍ, which is my favorite ayah, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But before that ayah, usually it says um, فكيف كان فكيف كان وعذاب فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ. Um, and I can actually tell you the translation of that. It's very interesting. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ. Then how dreadful were my punishment and warnings. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats this ayah is because he goes through five different civilizations, which are commonly mentioned in the Quran. But he goes through these five civilizations as an example. So we have the people of Nuh, right? Qawmi Nuh, the people of Thamud, the people of Lut, the people of Ad, and the people of Ad actually are second. I think it's in the order in the surah. I think it's Nuh, Ad, Thamud, Lut, and then Firaun, right? So those are the five civilizations that he goes through. And, it's to serve as a reminder, right? The stories, did you not see that these people, we gave them all the signs and they rejected it? So then did you not see their fate? Did you not see these people's fate? Um, and so I think, if you read the surah and you understand the symmetry of it, it's quite beautiful. A lot of the ayahs are very easy to memorize. So, for example, كَذَّبَتْ عَادٌ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ. So it talks about Ad, فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ, right? That same ayah repeated. And then once again, um, فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِالنُّذُرِ, right? And then when we get to the people, um, the people of Lut, كَذَّبَتْ قَوْمُ لُوطٍ بِالنُّذُرِ. Um, and then there's another one where it talks about um, Fir'aun as well, right? So I think if you just consider those, and if you just read through the translation of it, you'll get a pretty good picture of these five groups of people and kind of just some of the stories associated with that. Now to go into my favorite ayah, right? And I've said this like four or five other videos, but وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And this ayah is repeated, I believe, four times in the surah. And I want to say four, it could be five, but I think it's four times if I remember right. Um, but the beauty of this ayah is that it basically translates to we have made the Quran easy to remember or to memorize. So which of you will be mindful of that, or which of you will remember it? There's different translations, but which of you will heed to that, right? So it's basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying like the Quran is easy to memorize. Which of you will learn it? Which of you, will memorize it? And for me, that ayah is like super, super powerful, super, you know, like I think of all the ayahs in the Quran, this ayah really strikes me because it's not difficult to memorize Quran if you put your heart to it, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not my words, it's not my thoughts, it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Um, we have made it easy to learn or easy to memorize or remember. So which of you will remember it? If the Lord of the universe is telling you it's easy to do, easy to remember, then who are we to not take up that challenge, right? And I always say, like, imagine standing in front of the Lord of the worlds, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and telling him that we are the people that memorize the Quran. I think that would be such an amazing honor if you think about it. Um, and a lot of people use different excuses, but if you think about it, a lot of the Sahaba, when they were, you know, like the Prophet ﷺ became a prophet at age 40. So the Quran was revealed from when he was 40 to 60, 63, right? 23 years of prophethood. And there's a whole bunch of points we can go to. But firstly, the Prophet ﷺ was 40 years old, right? So a lot of the Sahaba, a lot of the companions were also 40 plus, 50 plus when they were memorizing the Quran. Um, so you can just think like a lot of the people watching this video, they might be my age or around, my age. Or even if you're 40 or 50 or whatever, whatever age you are watching this, they memorized it, right? So age is not an excuse. Accessibility is not an excuse. We have the Quran at our fingertips. You have the Quran on your phone. You have the Quran, physical Quran on your phone. Um, I mean, the accessibility is you can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify. You can pull up different recitations. Any one you want to listen to, you can pull up. And I just think there's really no reason not to if you think about it. And you can only just imagine the reward and the barakah that's associated with memorizing the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Quran, without a doubt, is the one thing we know that there's no debate about. So the reason I say that is because, other things in the religion, there is a level of trust. For example, we in Islam, we follow the Quran and we follow the Sunnah, right? But even the Sunnah, even the Hadith, there is authenticity with that, right? Like we have a chain of people and, it's authentic, but, or it can be authentic or it cannot be authentic, right? There's some things that are weak Hadith or weak Sunnah. There's some things that are strong Sunnah, strong, or strong Sunnah or weak Sunnah. But the Quran is just the Quran, right? We know for a fact that this is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, if you think about it, the purpose of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life was to reveal the Quran, because he became a prophet at 40 and he died at 63. When did he die? Right when a few months or shortly, right? I don't know the exact time, but very shortly after he had revealed the last ayahs of the Quran that he was going to reveal. Um, so if you think about it, if you really want to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you should look at the purpose of his prophethood, which was to reveal the Quran. This is the last words from God that we are receiving. And so if you just think about the immense magnitude of that, then I hope you be inspired to, memorize the Quran. So, and you don't have to do it quickly. You can do it, take your time, do it slowly. But here's what I will do. Here's what I challenge everyone watching this video to think about. And I did this calculation myself. So even if you're fresh to religion, even if you're new to the religion right now, even if you had never memorized a verse in the Quran today, there's around 6,000 verses in the Quran or something like that. And if you divide that based on the number of days in a year, it would take you a little over 17 years if you did one verse a day to memorize the Quran. So if you start right now, you just memorize one verse a day, you'll finish the Quran in 17 years, memorized. Now, with that in mind, it only takes a minute or two every single day to do one verse, you know? Now, obviously, some verses are a little bit longer than other, don't get me wrong. Um, if you do page 48 Baqarah, that one verse is one page. So that might take you a little bit more than a few minutes. But my challenge to you is that, and you're gonna do it a lot faster than one verse a day. And this is not counting all the verses you already know, right? Juz Amma, which we all know, all the small surahs, right? Most of us know growing up, and they're very easy to learn. So that's not counting all those ayahs that you already know. But if you just take that challenge to even just do one verse a day, and if you cannot memorize, then understand it, read the Quran. Um, but there's no excuse. I truly, truly, truly believe that we, as the greatest of creation, right? Mankind, we're the greatest of creation. It's in the Quran. Um, we're the best of creation. And we're given these amazing brains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We have made it easy for you to memorize. If it's easy to memorize, and that is God's promise, then I challenge you guys to join me on that journey and to memorize the Quran, inshallah. Um, so with that being said, that's pretty much Surah Qamar. A lot of stuff I didn't even talk about in the surah. But that's just my general takeaway. If you're watching this video and you're interested in looking at the surah, definitely look at those ayahs we talked about and some of those points. And then, inshallah, from tomorrow onwards, we will be doing um, Ali Imran. So, first two pages, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sadaqallahu al-azim.